Please stand, take a moment for a silent reflection. And then the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a roll call, please, Janine?
Mr. Campion is absent. Mrs. Camp? Here. Mr. Herner? Here. Mr. Merrick?
Here.
Mr. Schuler?
Here.
Mr. Borbeck?
Here.
Mayor Rudd?
Here. I'm going to read the Statement of Compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Pursuant to the requirements of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice filed in the office of the Borough Clerk, posted on the Borough website and on the bulletin board in the municipal building, published as legal notice in the Co-Star newspaper and mailed to those requesting notice and providing payment in accordance with Borough policy. Can I get an approval of our agenda? We have no changes, right? So it's just as is.
Make that motion. Seconded.
Roll call?
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrick?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Is the minutes, is it all the same?
We can do it in one
Okay.
month.
Yeah, so can I get a motion to approve the minutes for both the June 13th, 2016 executive session and the June 27th, 2016 executive and regular session?
I will make that motion.
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrick?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passes.
We don't have any scheduled presentations. We do have 2 scheduled public hearings on ordinances that we introduced at the last council meeting. So let's open up the first public hearing, which is on ordinance number 2016-05, which is an ordinance amending section 7-3.4 entitled Parking Prohibited During Certain Hours on Certain Streets of Chapter 7. If you recall, if you weren't here, or if you recall, this is specifically addressing that there were some streets on the south side of town that had parking restrictions, and in fact, some of them even had no parking signs that dated back to, as far as we could figure, when Jimmy Burns was a viable establishment to make sure that people weren't parking in front of their houses when they went to that place. That place now being a public park, and those signs not consistent across that area of town, we decided to make sure that the regulations reflected what we have in the rest of town. So that's what that one is. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing on ordinance 2016-05?
Motion.
Second.
Is that just a all in favor, or is that a roll call?
I'll do a roll call.
Roll call!
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrick?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passes.
So if anybody wishes to speak in favor or on this ordinance in general, please step forward, address the chair, and seeing no hands, I will ask anyone on the dais who wishes to say anything about that. All right, then can I get a motion to introduce that ordinance? Close the public hearing first, and then we'll introduce it.
I'll make a motion to close the public.
Yeah.
I'll second.
And I'll make a motion.
No, first get it. All in favor for closing the public?
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrick?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
And now, if we can get a motion to introduce that ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
It's actually to adopt the ordinance.
To adopt the ordinance, right, yeah.
I'm sorry, it was Mr. Borbeck and Mrs. King, correct?
Correct.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrick?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next ordinance that we have scheduled for public hearings is ordinance number 2016-06, which is establishing the salaries and wages for 2016. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing on
I'll
that?
make that motion.
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrick?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And again, anybody from the public who wishes to step forward and say anything about the salary and wage ordinance for 2016, please do so at this time.
Hi,
Hello?
Nancy Heda, 89 Central Ave, Spring Lake Heights. I would just like to ask the council if this is the range ordinance for salaries. I would like to see if this is approved when the council approves specific salaries, that we actually have an ordinance which has the old salary with a strikeout and the new salary that's proposed, and it's not done by resolution, but it's done by ordinance, because in New Jersey, under the borough form of government, citizens have a right to petition an ordinance. Once a resolution does not need an intro and an adoption, it doesn't need to be published. In a borough form of government, this is a basic right of citizens. So I would like to request the mayor and council that, this is the ranges, and that if this is approved, that we then have an ordinance where we intro and adopt, and we show what the salary is and what the salary proposed will be, and that we do it by ordinance.
So you're saying going forward, you want...
Well, from here, so in other words, this is giving us a range. This does not tell us, and I'm going to choose you, Jay, because you and I talked about this before the meeting. I'm not picking on any one person, but the range for the borough administrator is $60,000 to $113,715. Do I know if the salary went from $62,000 and in this year it's going to be $115,000? There's nowhere you're telling us what the salary is going from.
So you're looking for
A specific ordinance.
Changes.
After this,
that
yes.
says what the range was and now what the range... No, you want the specific salary.
I want a specific salary,
By
because if we're
title.
approving it
By title.
by title, just like this, except for it would have the salary was, and we're in the range, and this is what we're proposing. So it gets introduced and published.
But here, mostly the range, the maximum is what you're paying. And it's the starting is the minimum. And anywhere in there, you can negotiate something if you're filling that slot, I believe, right? But generally speaking, the maximum is what they're making this year, right? That's why we do it here, instead of having a wide range that they could get. That is what they're making in the maximum range.
Okay, so.
So if you
then-
had a copy of last year's, you could see the difference, is that what you're saying?
Well, many municipalities, I'm not saying all, but many, would give us what it was and what it is. And they don't just publish the range, they will publish the salary by ordinance, because so what you're telling me is if I wanted to petition to get more information, I would petition on this ordinance.
But a lot of towns do the maximum, if I'm not mistaken, they use a range higher than what they're actually paying.
Well, it
They'll
doesn't matter.
establish a range so it gives them room, but here it's actually, I think, what's being.
But either way, you're asking for just the list of the salaries, essentially. I mean...
By ordinance, yeah, it's for it to be done by ordinance so that people get a right to the introduction, the publication, and the final adoption as they have a right to. And that's what I'm simply asking for. So we can be very specific. If the Bureau Administrator is making $113,715 and last year's salary was $109,000, I would like that on the salary ordinance so people can see where are we going. I remember last meeting you mentioned that it was roughly a 2% raise across the board.
Yeah, for any salary positions, most of the ones that would be considered stipends stayed the same. But I mean, again, that's not listed in the ordinance, so you're just listening to what I'm saying as opposed to actually seeing it written down.
Right.
And you're asking for it to be written down. I understand
Yes.
where you're coming from.
I would like to see that, and that's what I'm requesting of the mayor and council. So if we adopt this, or tonight, that we would then introduce an ordinance to put in specific salaries with what was proposed and let people see. And then have a number that, even if it's not in the ordinance, people will know, what is it costing us? What is that raise costing us? Because let's face it, the private sector does not get 2% every year. It just doesn't happen, you know? The people in the town's income is not going up 2%. So what is it costing the taxpayer per year per $100? You know? So that's my request, is that if we could do it specifically, show what was, what is, you know, I think that would be.
Okay, well, we'll see if we can get it done.
Okay, that would be awesome, and, you know, like I said, I don't have a specific problem, but if the range is this big, why are we cutting 60 to 113 if the specific salary, and I'm not choosing you, I'm just using.
Well, I mean, the reason that we make the ranges as wide as they are is that if the person that is making that maximum vacates the position, it gives us a lot of negotiating room to hire somebody.
Agreed.
As opposed to if it's stated as, 110 to 113, then we have to hire within that range.
Right.
As opposed to this, we could find somebody potentially for less. I mean, that's the idea.
You hear that?
Not that we're looking.
But Jay and I talked about that too, that we could have in specific positions that are part-time, we could have a range that's full-time and part-time, and that we could do a quarterly or biannual ordinance which would catch up all your people, because you always go retroactive. We're in July, we're going back to January 1st, 2016. So, and the other question is, what did we budget for the salary increases in the budget that's already passed? You know what I mean? So I just think it bears more information for the residents,
And your point is that even if we didn't put it in, you could still petition and ask for it anyway, so why not just put it there?
well,
No, isn't that the point that you're making? Partially, right? That it should be there anyway because you have the right to it regardless of whether we put it there this time.
right, so I'm
That's
saying,
what
can
I'm
we
saying.
do that? And if we adopt this, which is fine, I'm, for adopting the salary ranges, I'd like to see the next ordinance be the specifics of the actual salaries. If
I
I
hear
were
what
to
you're saying. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Seeing no further hands, I'll ask the council if they wish to say anything about the salary and wage ordinance. Seeing no hands up here, can I get a motion to close the public hearing
I'll
on
make that motion.
the salary and wage
Second.
ordinance? Roll call?
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borback?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And then can I get a motion to adopt ordinance number 2016-06?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borback?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And that is the list of our scheduled public hearings, which brings us to our public comment section for agenda items. If anybody wishes to speak on any agenda item, please step forward, state your name and address, and address the chair. Seeing no hands, can I get a motion to close the public comment section?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borback?
Yes.
We have no listed discussion items, which brings us to our mayor and council reports. I'll start with you, Mr. Councilman American. Do you have anything to report?
Nothing to report at this time.
Councilman Schuler?
I would like to make one statement. The trash week is July 7th. The Public Works picked up 20 ton of trash on the south side of town. They worked through the lunch period to get the job done, and it was job well done. I like to make
20
that
tons?
20 tons. And that's just the south side. That's all I got.
Sarah?
The only thing I have to report on is that a project is starting, a noticeable start on Warren and Old Mill Road, started today. And Jersey Central Power and Light will be working there all week. And what they're doing is they're changing over the lines. Then we will have the other utilities come in, I presume, after they finish. But it is very good to see that they are starting significant movement on this project that has been so long coming. So my suggestion would be that if you can, to avoid using that intersection, because it's going to be very, very congested and very difficult. So for the people that live in town, I just want to give them a heads up on that, and that's all I have.
And just as a reminder on that, we talked about that a couple meetings ago, and there was a discussion about them trying to make us pay for the police services for that.
No,
The
we're
end
not.
result was great,
No.
that we're not paying for it, the county's paying for that,
Right.
right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Nothing to report this under.
Oh,
All right, that brings us to our reports, notices and correspondences. We have a couple. The public hearing notice from Wall Township on ordinance 8-2016, which is amending chapter 140 of land use. And a letter from the state New Jersey DEP about the inspection of sanitary collection systems.
We didn't have a copy of the sanitary collection system in here, though, right? Are we supposed to access the website? Is that weird? I saw a thing in here saying access, but the actual report isn't there, right?
No, we have to access the website.
Determining facilities and compliance.
Yes.
Is this one?
Huh?
There's a letter that,
Yeah.
yeah, that we're in
I
compliance.
thought maybe we can make a copy and give it to us, what the report was. Yeah.
Okay.
If there was anything in, was there anything in the report?
I know, I didn't say it. Just said that the letter said we're in compliance.
I will
Yeah.
print it for you, or
Could you do that?
short thing.
Thank you.
I'll put it in everybody's friendly packet.
Spoil me.
That brings us to our ordinance introductions. We have one, which is ordinance number 2016-07, an ordinance authorizing a lease agreement with the Spring Lake Heights Athletic Association. And this is the Little League lease, right?
Need a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
And then we have one resolution, which is Resolution R.
You just need to
Oh,
vote
sorry.
on the ordinance that normally we would set a date now for the
For the hearing.
public hearing. But in this instance, it has to, the lease has to go to Green Acres to be approved by Green Acres.
So we
And then
won't know
it'll
the
come back
date
to us.
until we get their approval.
Exactly, I think that's right. Yeah.
So yeah, and then just like the other ordinance that we just introduced and passed, there will be a hearing that will be publicly announced, and then it will be on the agenda, and we'll go through that. We have one resolution, Resolution R 2016-123, which is approving payment of claims on the July 8th, 2016 bill list. Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passes.
That brings us to our public comment section, and this is on any items, agenda or otherwise. If you would like to make a public comment, please step forward, approach the microphone, and address the chair, state your name and address.
I promise I'll be brief. I promise. And since I've come and tortured you every 2 weeks, I'm wearing pink sneakers because I guess it was the gods paying me back. I fell down the stairs last week, taking the garbage out Saturday morning. I said, that's because I'm torturing the council about the recycling center. So therefore the sneakers, I just want to say, last week, 4 days, our public works guys had garbage, brush, recycling, and 20 tons on our side of town. I don't know what the other side of town was, and they did a great job. They really, I mean, that's a lot of stuff to get done in 1 week. I'm gonna ask again that last meeting, when I asked who to call when there was garbage out for a week or 2 weeks or brush out for a month, it was brought up here that I should call the police. So I did have a nice talk with our chief, and he recommended that until we revisit at the end of the year and we change our schedule, that perhaps next year we'll go back to Monday for bulky trash, that perhaps we could go back to doing a sticker. The public works guys would just have them in the truck when they see things out, because they do go on every street twice a week at a minimum in the town. So I talked to Arthur, about it. We used to do that. And in fact, it would just be
A
at least.
sticker, I'm sorry, for what?
Like, it's like an orange sticker, and this way, Art recommended that the driver do it, Joe. I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
Well, you certainly don't want anybody else doing is picking up the garbage, so you.
Right, the other guy's picking up the garbage, they see it there, and they look at the counter and they say, okay, brush is in for 3 weeks. And they put, it's an orange sticker, and it says, Borough Spring Lake Heights, Department of Public Works, please be reminded that
Oh,
you
like
are
on the-
invited
It's a
to.
red decal, and you check off what's wrong, is it out the wrong day,
Right.
trash, recycling, trash.
If doesn't follow the ticket, we'll do it.
Well-
I'm just saying, she asked what we used to do, we used to put stickers, most people comply.
But at least if we are gonna
Most people-
revisit in the fall.
Not everybody says the hell with it.
Right, most people will say, I didn't know. You know, and they wanna do the right thing. But, you know, the summer people that come down, right now, they just see, I mean, this past week, before the guys could do their jobs, the week before 4th of July, it was a disaster. You rode down the streets, there was brush, there was recycling, there were sofas. And it wasn't good, you know? So until we can revisit our calendar, which really would be the end of the year, so we don't have to go changing it and reprinting calendars, in the interim, it's a way for us to notice people, and I think most people want to do the right thing. And if they know, and everybody else sees, oh, they're not putting their recycling out until Tuesday night, you know, they follow suit. I mean, you know, that's what I tend to think my neighbors do. I look for my one neighbor, whatever he does, he's always right. And it's never out before 6 p.m. the night before, which is what our ordinance is. So it's a way, it's a very inexpensive way to address it for the next couple of months. I agree with you, Joe, without a summons, but if they see somebody that's been out there for 3 weeks and they have 3 red stickers on it, then they could tell Neil that could he take a ride by and visit that property.
Well, and whenever we gave them, instead of a summons, you wrote them a letter, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, and it gives them 48 hours to get rid of it. So really, you're 5 down, in order to do it legally, you're 5 down, they can just fool with it for 5 days before they have to take it anyway, in which time someone will probably pick it up. So you hope that just someone just saying, hey, you got it on the wrong day, and I don't want to look at it, you hope they would just take care of business, right? You would hope so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Just pass those over there. And I promised last time I was here, and I'm sorry I walked out without even passing them out. This is just a little chart that compares the recycling centers in Spring Lake Heights, Cedar, Belmar, Manasquan, Avon, and Wall. And basically, what you were talking about, because what does that 20 tons of bulky trash cost us?
Pardon?
What does that cost us, the borough, to get rid of that 20 tons?
Joe,
Probably about 2,500.
2,500. So, I mean, you can see that there's different ways that they deal with bulky trash in the towns around us. Some of them, it's free. Look at Seagirt, anything that you get rid of, a refrigerator or a freezer, anything with an old air conditioner, it's $25 because of the refrigerant. Everything else is free unless you bring it to the yard, and it's more than a half a cubic yard. Stickers are $2 each in Belmar. And that sticker, they actually have a list on their public works site. So it gives you, if you're emptying a whole house, it's gonna cost you, by weight, if you were putting out the entire house, you would have to go buy 200 stickers, it would cost you about $400, still probably cheaper than a dumpster. And they'll pick it up. You know, Manasquan doesn't charge, Avon doesn't charge. Wall charges when none of them take contractors and everything. But like Wall, if it's a homeowner and they have construction debris, they actually have a sticker program that they'll charge for it. So, you know, would ask the mayor and council again to, you know, take a look at it, consider, not the charge as much as that it's residents only, that we just empower our public works personnel to be able to ask somebody for an ID.
These decals are not for, these are to put on each, like, so much for a
Piece of
washing machine,
trash.
so much for trash.
That's what they do in Belmar.
But you would like to see maybe a sticker on the bumper of our car?
That's what you were
Or
talking
at least
about.
to show the ID, right?
Right, just to at least show ID in the interim until we decide, do we want to do, Spring Lake does a decal, and I believe, Wall does a
How
decal.
many of these don't have full-time person at the recycling center?
I do not find out, but I think even if we had somebody
I would say
2
none.
hours a day
I
and we
would say
show,
none.
and we show a
I would
presence,
say all of these, I mean, have someone there all the time.
but my point is, we don't need to have somebody there all the time. We need to post a sign that says residents only, you may be asked for ID, and that if they're asked arbitrarily, they don't know when they're gonna be asked.
That's true.
That we at least are preventing people riding by going, I can stop and dump my recycling. and
Details on
trash."
cars are better than someone saying, hey, let me see your driver's license.
Yeah.
Well, I agree.
So,
I
but
agree.
but really, for any of this to work, none of these are just open to the public without someone looking for a decal. And that's how they maintain it, because that's what they need to. Because as soon as they know when they're not gonna be there, that's when everybody's gonna circumvent it and run in there that doesn't want to. If they're, I don't know why they're bringing their stuff to us rather than their own recycling anyway. I mean, it's, you know, we have a nice recycling center, but, you know,
Well, it is
You know,
nice.
not giving
and we can
away.
Pull up and, you know, but I do think it's important that we do it. And I do
Well,
think
yeah.
it's important that the mayor and council back our public works employees, that when they're there and they know it's for residents only, it's the bottom line. We need to, if nothing else, the resolution, most municipalities do not pass an ordinance with the particulars. They do it by resolution, because they can change it every year. You don't need to adopt by ordinance what you're, you know, if there's a fee for a decal or not, we don't need to do that. A resolution is quite sufficient. That's what I'm, you know, asking for, and that's it, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening, Mayor Council. Eric Bennett, on 3 Ocean Road. Just 2 quick suggestions. It's more so for the park, especially with the Community Center Park. I noticed that there's really no shade, and some of the trees are dying off. Is there any way to work with the Arbor Tree Foundation to get some trees put in, to provide shade for the playground equipment, because it does get very hot for the kids, especially that park.
Yeah.
It's used quite bad by the kids. Where it gets hot to the touch, we could maybe get some trees put in around the park so they keep the shade on the equipment while they play.
No, I think it's a good idea. Yeah, we can look into seeing, get the trees planted there.
And the only other thing was, a lot of kids, especially the south end of town, walk there or ride their bikes to the park. There's no crosswalk across Ocean Road.
At Ocean Road
At
and
Ninth.
Ninth, okay.
Could we look into getting a crosswalk put in? The aprons are there for the sidewalk,
Okay,
but there's no crosswalk to go across Ocean Road to provide safe access for the kids, the parents, grandparents that are getting the kids to the park, going for a walk, going for a ride.
no, I think that'd be a good place for a sign, especially the speed that people sometimes go down Ocean Road.
Yes. That's it, thank you.
All right, thank you, Eric. Seeing no other hands, can I get a motion to close the voice of the public?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borback?
Yes.
Yes.
That brings us to the end of our agenda items. Can I get a motion to
Motion.
adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.